of the remotest places on Earth.
What a freshwater monster this thing is.
I've discovered that behind even the most outlandish tale, there is often a real creature. Now, from a watery wilderness come stories of a frightening and almost unbelievable beast.
You could see the coils of a giant serpent.
It had the intention to eat him.
But what is this sinister animal, and is it really attacking people? It's time to find the truth about Canada's mysterious lake monster. I've investigated legends of lake monsters from all around the world. Typically, the stories are tied to a single body of water, such as Loch Ness. But I've recently come across an intriguing exception. Across a huge expanse of Canada, there are reports of strange, snake-like beasts, sometimes as long as a bus. Allegedly, these creatures have attacked and even killed people. Most sightings are little more than a fleeting glimpse, but one thing that keeps cropping up is the sinuous, elongated shape of this mysterious animal. And some claim to have seen the beast lift its head right up out of the water. I know that snakes can grow to a monstrous size.
It is huge. It is absolutely huge.
Big enough to swallow a man. In the Amazon, I've met people who say they've seen a cobra grande, a snake even bigger than an anaconda.
This sounds more than just a big anaconda. This was a huge animal. I mean, immense size, great big head, and this thing was black, red, and yellow.
However, to get seriously big, reptiles require a warm climate. I find it hard to believe that a snake the size of an anaconda could survive in Canada's subarctic waters. But if it's not a snake, then what on earth is this lurking menace? Many of the stories are coming from the Canadian province of Ontario. But I'm heading first to neighboring Minnesota to check out a possible lead at the Minneapolis Science Museum. This is the skeleton of a prehistoric whale. There are people who believe that at least some of Canada's lake monster sightings are some kind of primitive whale that entered after the last ice age when raised sea levels temporarily connected many of the lakes to the ocean. With their elongated bodies and tapering tails, certain prehistoric whales were so snake-like that even scientists mistook them for reptiles. But for me, the whale theory has a fatal flaw. Some of the lakes where monsters have been sighted have never been connected to the ocean. How could a whale have found its way to these lakes? In the case of the sightings I've been hearing about, it's got to be something else. My investigation begins in a place where there have been multiple sightings. Eagle Lake lies deep in Canada's wilderness. The best way to get there is by air. Incredibly, the province of Ontario holds more than a third of the world's fresh water. Eagle Lake alone covers an area more than 4 times the size of Manhattan.
These valleys were carved out by the glaciers which once smothered this region. When the glaciers retreated, they left behind thousands of deep icy lakes, plenty of space to hide a monster.
There's something about this water world, however, that means I have to rule out another possible suspect. A giant that I've encountered before.
There's the fish, there it is. There we go, there we go, there we go.
This is probably the biggest freshwater fish I've caught. About 300 pounds, this one. A real monstrous fish.
White sturgeon can grow to 20 feet long, and they are known to swim up rivers. However, there's a problem with the sturgeon theory.
These are landlocked lakes, and sturgeon are migratory fish that are only found in waterways connecting with the Pacific Ocean.
If the stories I've heard are true, then these waters must be harbouring some other large and dangerous beast.
This place really does have quite a mysterious feel to it. We tend to think of lakes as large, open expanses of water, but this lake is anything but. And we've now entered this creek that is just winding away as far as I can see, and this connects to another open area, and it's very easy here to lose your sense of direction. You know, it's a bit of a maze, a bit of a labyrinth.
It's not the water, but the rocks that offer up my first faded bit of evidence.
Just come across these rock paintings on this cliff face. This one here, clearly a person holding what looks like a spear in one hand. There's what looks like a turtle here. And I'm guessing these are pretty old.
These images could be thousands of years old, and among them there's one that catches my eye.
This one here, well, you know, it's open to interpretation, but it doesn't take a lot of imagination to see that as something snake-like. Maybe that is the water serpent.
It may just be coincidence, but I'm eager to track down the descendants of whoever drew this symbol. Perhaps they'll be able to add some crucial details. Eagle Lake is the ancestral home of the Migizi-Sorgagan people, an ancient tribe of indigenous Canadians. They still live here in a small settlement on the northeastern shore. I need to tread carefully, though. I've been told they may be reluctant to speak to outsiders about unusual sightings. But tribal elder Robert Kelly is willing to talk.
That serpent, it does exist.
Do you have a name for it?
Our people say Kchiginevik.
Stories of this beast have been passed down through generations.
Guys, their elders, even my parents, have talked about great serpent. People talked about something surfacing from the water and then go back down slowly.
Do people say anything else about the way that it looks? Is any details at all?
The ones that they have seen in the water were dark, almost black.
It sounds a bit like a supersized eel, but anything that's as big as people are saying is going to need a good supply of food. I'm curious to start finding out what's actually living in this deep, cold lake.
Unlike a lot of the water that I fish, you've got quite amazing clarity here, so the chances are any predators here very much use the sense of sight. And even down at 40, 50, 60 feet, that's going to give off quite a flash. Fish are going to see it. There might also be a little bit of a throb as well when that moves, but that's basically going to mimic a small prey fish.
Canada is new territory for me. I'm not entirely sure what to expect.
What I'm doing, I'm not actually casting this lure off the boat, I'm just lowering it down into the water. It's just giving short pulls which will make it flash and throb and then let it flutter back down again. I'm using a little bit of gadgetry to help me see what's in the water. There are solid lines above the bottom, which is some kind of fish, but until I get it on the hook, I don't know what it is.
yes, 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 yes. Oh, yes. Ah! Well, this is a lake trout, a predator in its own right. It took a spoon that was mimicking a small fish, so that's a big predator's mouth full of teeth.
But it's the lake trout's exceptionally high fat content that interests me. It wouldn't take many of these smaller predators to sustain a monster. And as I continue to fish, the lake trout keep biting.
That's an indication of how strong that fish was. That's metal that it's semi-straightened. Very, very strong fish for their size.
In this clear, open water, there's nowhere to hide. To escape from its enemies, a fish like this needs to be fast.
Well, I think the conclusion's pretty clear. The water down here is just teeming with fatty, nutritious fish, a perfect bite-sized morsel for any larger predator that might be down there.
Clearly, there's lots of space here for a monster and plenty to eat. But to start working towards a positive ID, I want to meet one of the few people on this lake who claim to have actually seen the beast with their own eyes. When I eventually track him down, though, Leonard Skye seems wary of saying too much.
Like, I mean, when we see something, we don't really go and broadcast it all over the place. You'd be deemed a lunatic if you do.
It takes a while for Leonard to come round and tell me about his strange encounter.
We were going across the lake in a boat with my clients.
One of the fishermen then spots something odd in the water.
I looked at it. I said, that can't be. It was big. Like an overturned boat, about 20 feet or so. So we went in to investigate it, and that thing sank. And then we turned on our sonar, and there was nothing there. It just disappeared.
Leonard has spent decades on this lake, but what he saw that day was unlike anything he'd seen before. To him, it was Kachiganabik, the Eagle Lake serpent. To me, it's totally perplexing.
So whereabouts on the lake did you see this?
Right in front, way over there, where the sun is shining on the far horizon, called Spirit Rock.
For the Magizzi-Sorgagan people, Spirit Rock is a sacred place.
People are not supposed to point towards the rock.
Is that because people respect the place?
I respect for the spirit that's there.
It's said the spirit can be placated with an offering of tobacco. But even so, anyone who goes near the rock does so at their own risk. If it really is the lair of a large unknown creature, then I intend to find out. Predators will often stake out the deep water alongside a drop-off, so islands can be ideal ambush spots. I'm wondering if Leonard's monster vanished into a cave, but this isn't something I can find out with a rod and line.
I'm reckoning my best chance of seeing what's down there is actually getting in the water myself, but I have to say I'm more than a little daunted because the visibility is actually not that great, and if there is something down there, I'm not going to see it until I'm pretty much on top of it.
In winter, this lake is entombed in a foot of ice. but even in the summer, getting in the water is a bone-chilling experience. Below the surface, the bottom falls away on all sides. But there are no obvious cracks or hiding places, and the entire area seems eerily devoid of life.
There's nothing here. I've not seen any fish, and that's strange.
I've drawn a blank at Spirit Rock, but I'm not giving up. Back on land, I hear about someone who was recently attacked on this very lake, right next to the shore. Perhaps this could be the work of the mysterious lake serpent. If so, then bite marks left on the victim could help solve this mystery. In previous investigations, I've been able to identify attackers from the distinctive wounds. They now understand why the muskie has been nicknamed the water wolf. Its hardware reminds me of something I've encountered before, an equally ferocious predator from the jungles of South America, known as the wolffish.
So it looks quite gap-toothed, but actually, pull those lips back and you see they're very spiky fangs underneath there.
This muskie had a mouth like a bear trap, but how long was it, nose to tail?
Based on the size of this jaw, the whole muskie would have measured something like 5, maybe 6 foot long. Very big muskie, but it still falls considerably short of the size of this lake monster. But having said that, there's no other candidates in the frame at the moment. Maybe I'm missing something.
To keep my investigation moving, I need to see this fish in the flesh. So I'm heading to a stretch of river where huge muskies are said to lurk. The exact spot is a closely guarded secret.
The only name I've been given for the place where I'm going is Location X. It's actually on a Native American reservation, and as a rule, outsiders just aren't allowed there. And I'm only being allowed to go there on strict condition that I don't say where it is. This is as far as I can go in this.
From here on in, my guide is taking me off the grid. At our secret riverside camp, I start to prepare for the challenge ahead. Muskies are notoriously hard to catch. Not for nothing are they known to anglers as the fish of 10,000 casts. Some have spent an entire lifetime in pursuit of a single monstrous specimen. My time, however, is more limited. So the gear I choose is going to be critical.
So how do I tempt a muskie? Well, what I know about them is that they hunt very much using their sense of sight, but they've also got this lateral line organ that picks up vibrations in the water. So I'm thinking lures that have got a lot of flash and movement to them, but also lures that are going to make a lot of noise in the water. With a bit of luck, I will get to a point where I put something in front of them that triggers their predatory response.
To have any chance of success, I also need to think like a muskie.
The muskie are going to be tight to the bank, out of the main flow. It's where the small fish are going to be, it's where they are going to conserve energy, so cast as close to the bank as I can get them. If anything's going to bring a fish, that's going to be the tactic.
Most fish would be scared off by the noise of lures like this. But muskies are fearless predators that are just as likely to investigate a disturbance in the water. After more than 5 hours, though, I'm still waiting for a strike.
This is absolutely perfect time of day for predators to be on the prowl, but I've not felt anything on the line, but I have felt every cast the throbbing of the lures, and I can be pretty certain that the fish down there have felt that as well.
By the time I turn in for the night, I must have racked up close to 500 casts. I'm learning the hard way that the muskie is an extremely wily opponent.
Maybe it's a lure like that that's going to tempt them, or something a bit strange looking like that. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the reaction of one particular fish at one specific moment.
Only now, there's an unexpected problem. A huge storm funnels straight through my camp. And by morning, my worst fears are confirmed. The banks here are formed of soft brown clay, and the runoff has turned the river into a muddy soup.
The water level's come up, it's still coming up, and the visibility has gone down from about 2 feet to about 2 inches. And for a predator that feeds largely using vision, that's not a good sign.
If a muskie can't see my lure, it's less likely to bite. But it can still feel the vibrations the lure makes. And I'm hoping this will be enough.
Although the visibility is very low at the moment, all the lures that I'm using also send out quite a bit of sound and vibration, and this really throbs down there, so they're still going to be aware of this.
The odds may have worsened, but I have to keep trying.
The thing is, particularly with muskie, it's to fish always ready for something to happen, because they can literally just come from nowhere, and if you're not primed for action, then you could miss what could be the only opportunity of the day.
After many hours, though, I'm forced to admit that this is a lost cause.
This is an intensely frustrating situation. One of the components of my limited access here is limited time. I've got 3 days. The thing is, that's at least how long it's going to take for this water to clear. So really, I have no other alternative but to pack everything up and try and find somewhere else.
Big muskies are few and far between, so this is a serious blow to my investigation. But my guide tells me there is one other place I can try. Rowan Lake is as deep as it is remote. Maybe this is where I'll find a giant, and with it perhaps the missing clue I'm looking for, a way to make sense of all those unexplained sightings.
This place is a real wilderness. It's probably true to say that nobody has ever set foot on a lot of this land.
Unaffected by the recent storm, the lake's crystal clear waters look ideal for a muskie hunt.
This is beautifully clear water. I can see the bait very distinctly, but I'm not looking at the lure so much as the space behind it. About 3, 4, 5 foot behind, to see if there's something following it.
Though ferocious, muskies are also cunning. Before hitting a lure, they'll often stalk it, sometimes right up to the boat. So every time the lure comes in, I keep it circling in the water for several moments before lifting it out.
And most times there's just nothing there, but once in a while you lock onto the shape of a fish.
I'm now well past 1,000 casts, and still waiting for a lucky break.
Ah, yes! That's a fish. That's a fish. Yes, yes, yes!
It's a toothy predator, though not yet the one I'm after.
This could be a good sign. The pike are feeding. But to be honest, the fish that I'm after could inhale this in one mouthful.
The northern pike is a fast, aggressive predator. But for a big muskie, this would be little more than a bite-sized snack. As the hours pass, I try every conceivable combination of lure and location.
Lots of casting. They do call muskie the fish of 10,000 casts, but the point is it's not the same cast over and over again. You're varying the lure, but also different location, different speed, different depth, and you just never know in advance which cast is going to be the one that pushes the fish's buttons. I think there's a pike on. Here we go.
I'm having absolutely no problem attracting pike.
Another pike. Oh.
But its bigger, uglier brother is nowhere to be seen.
Another pike. It's a pike again.
I catch pike after pike. It's a struggle to stay focused. And then, to compound my frustration, I'm impaled by my own hook.
I'll just take it.
Yeah, all right, good. Ah, the pike's off. I hooked myself. The best hook up all day, myself. I got off lightly. The good thing was that that pike actually came off. It wasn't attached to my arm and flapping around. Well, if that had been a muskie, and if that had stayed attached rather than unhooking itself, I could be in a lot more trouble.
With the weather closing in, something different grabs my bait.
Look at this, look at this, look at this.
This greedy fish has bitten off far more than it can chew.
Right, so the bass are hungry. It's probably about the same length as the lure altogether.
The bass seems to think it can eat something as long as itself.
That's the bait. That's what went after it.
Even the small fish here are punching above their weight. But the predator at the top of the food chain, the muskie, continues to elude me. Once again, bad weather puts an end to my fishing.
I think we saw a bit of lightning just then, so not good to be out on a big expanse of water waving a carbon fibre pole.
With this new setback, I can't help feeling that the gods are against me. Next morning, I take time out to talk to my guide, Don Persh. He's spent a lifetime hunting the muskies in this lake.
There's just really no other freshwater fish like these fish. All of a sudden, there they are, and you have to be in the game all the time.
Then he tells me a first-hand fisherman's tale, a story that could be highly significant.
It was a bright sunny day, and here was this big brown line coming in. I thought I was looking at 10 foot of muskie coming after my bait. And it was 2 50-inchers nose to tail coming at the same time. They were in a straight line coming like a train.
So what it was two muskies following each other, one behind the other, sort of total length, something like 10 foot.
Yes, sir.
Could this be the missing piece of the puzzle?
It's very interesting what Don said about the behaviour of these fish, and I'm particularly intrigued by that story of one muskie following close behind another, because although one muskie is not really big enough to be the lake monster, perhaps what people are seeing is more than one individual swimming in formation, creating the illusion of a much bigger creature.
During spawning, muskies are known to swim very close to one another, sometimes with their backs and tails breaking the surface. What if the 20-foot Canadian lake monster was not one muskie, but a small group of them swimming in loose formation? The muskie is the best candidate I can find for the sightings of a giant serpent in these waters. It has the attitude, the shape, the hardware, and the unusual head-lifting behavior to match. And this new information ticks the final box. Size. My investigation might be complete, but my mission is far from over. I can't feel entirely satisfied until I've actually seen a muskie in the flesh. And this is now becoming an obsession. For 5 more days, I fish around the clock. But now, not even the pike are biting.
No response here, time to move on again.
Something on that. Yeah. Oh no.
It's off, whatever it was. I think that was a fish momentarily on. I just felt it was just like a weight. I couldn't feel any kicking or anything. And it was on for a couple of seconds, just a weight.
Whatever grabbed my bait has left its signature.
Something has perforated the plastic. There's tooth marks there. But it didn't hook up.
My muskie hunt is now really taking its toll. My hands and arms are sore, my eyes are aching. And most disturbing of all, I can feel my confidence ebbing away.
I knew that it was going to be hard, so I was prepared for lots of effort, for no reward or even sort of glimpse of a fish. But apparently this is, even for muskie fishing, this is slow, this is difficult.
By now, I must be close to 10,000 casts.
What I really need now, besides catching a fish, is a good night's sleep. But I find that I close my eyes and I'm expecting the shape of a fish to slide into view at any moment. I'm just sitting here all twitchy, tired, but at the same time strangely awake.
If I'm going to win this battle, I've got no choice but to keep working the water. But before I can get back to business, a boatman calls me over.
I heard there was an unusual capture down here. Where did you get that?
Just in the water, he was just swimming around.
Wow. So this is a turtle. I didn't know these were in here. Being a turtle, that means it's an air breather, so it will come to the surface from time to time. But when they rise up, they tend to just dimple the surface and go straight down. So I don't think this is responsible for any lake monster sightings. But if you were sitting on this dock, dangling your feet over the side, this could give you a pretty nasty bite on your toes.
I'm gradually ticking off the predators that live here. If only it was as easy to get my hands on a muskie.
Okay, time to go fishing. There's a lot of bird activity, a lot of loons out there, and they've been diving. Chances are that's for bait fish, so if there's one predator actively chasing small fish, there could be something else as well.
Do good things come to those who wait? Or am I fated to fail? Finally, after a week with little sleep,
Follow, 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 follow.
there's something big stalking my lure.
Muskie! Whoa, there we go.
It's the object of my obsession, and I can almost touch it.
Big fish, Jeremy.
It's tantalizingly close.
Still there.
Then it simply vanishes.
Sake.
I've never experienced anything like this before. I feel I'm being taunted.
The frustration level is getting pretty well off the scale. To see a fish that far behind your lure and then it doesn't take it is just, you know, and you can't do anything about it. All you can do is try again and again. How many times?
The days are running together. More muskies follow my lures, but the strike I'm so desperate for never comes.
It's almost a bit like being in a boxing match where you try and sort of patch yourself up at the end of every round. But the problem with this particular match that I'm engaged in, I just have no idea how many rounds it might go.
In just a few more weeks, this lake will freeze and it'll be game over. I'm at my wit's end. Perhaps it's time to invoke the spirits.
You know, sometimes when anglers are struggling to find any kind of logical reason why things might improve, we fall back on superstition, in which case this here is absolutely right on cue.
I take this as a sign. But of what? Something tells me I should go back to Spirit Rock. It's not a known musky spot, but I've got something else on my mind. I feel I've lost belief in myself as an angler, and I need to get it back.
Because it is such a sacred place, I've brought tobacco with me to make an offering to the spirit.
I need to clear my head and regain my confidence. I just need to catch a fish. Anything will do. So I'm going right back to basics. A thin line, a lightweight rod, and a small hook.
The thing about muskie fishing is that it utterly consumes you, and at the same time you just get these intense levels of frustration. And I've got to the point where I'm actually fishing somewhat mechanically. I'm casting, and I've lost that expectation. I've lost that belief that I'm going to get something. I just want to feel anything. I don't care what it is, something alive on the end of my line to get that belief back.
Even a small lake trout would do the trick.
I'm keeping the bait within a couple of feet of the bottom, so I'm just giving it a little bit of life by just raising it a couple of foot or so off the bottom and letting it sink down again.
I've called on the spirit of Eagle Lake, and within minutes, I get a bite.
I just hooked something. That's a fish.
It feels good just to have something on my line.
There's something on.
But my joy is short-lived.
Look at that, it's gone. Something's had that. Something had the back end of that. Right, need to get something down there again, quickly.
Despite my loss, it's a good sign. Although Spirit Rock seemed barren during my dive, there's definitely life here now.
Oh, yes, that's a fish.
At last, I'm back in the game.
I'm worried about the line. This is an incredibly weak line.
But my rod is buckling under the strain. This is no lake trout. My prayers have been answered. I've hooked a muskie.
It's a massive muskie on 6-pound line. We're never going to get this in. I'm just going to let that drag go very loose.
My line just has to touch a rock, a tooth, or even the gill plate, and it'll snap.
We're going to try and get it near the boat. No, it's going down again. That's the fish.
Oh, she's huge. Keep her head down. That's a huge fish.
All my hopes are hanging on the slenderest of threads.
This is the monster from Spirit Rock. It's a big muskie. 6-pound line, tiny bait, sacred site, made the tobacco offering. That has to rank as one of the most extraordinary catches of my life.
we have got a muskie.
I must have made over 13,000 casts, and it's only when I stop trying to catch one that a muskie finally bites.
That's the hook. That's the line. Look at that line, it's like cotton. And that was just in the corner of the mouth. That line, well, that's what happens to that line and teeth. That's me, my teeth.
It's 4 feet long and then some. By any standards, a very big muskie.
Here we go, fish of 10,000 casts, big old muskie. So just looking at it, you can tell it's the supreme predator. It just has this attitude problem. It's the absolute top predator of these waters, and it knows it.
This fish is a very impressive beast.
Back in the water.
But just imagine 3 or 4 of them at the surface, swimming in a tight-knit group. You could be forgiven for thinking you'd seen the lake serpent. My search for a muskie has pushed me to the edge of madness in a way that no fish has ever done before. Superficially, it's just an oversized pike with a bad attitude. Another gnarly predator to add to my list. Only by trying to catch one have I come to realize that this fish is in a different league. And that to succeed against such an adversary, you have to enter a different dimension. Musky fever gets into your blood. This cunning beast is so elusive, it has virtually crossed over into the world of myth and legend. So how fitting that my quest has ended here, at a place believed to be a portal to another realm.
I'm actually still trying to take that in. I mean, who would have thought that things would have turned out this way to catch a fish like that in circumstances like this? They did say that this rock was the home of a monster. Turns out they were absolutely right.